So Padmasambhava wears three robes. He wears the blue robe of royalty, which is the robe of one's instinct, one's feeling that somewhere in life is magic, mystery, majesty, a real ideal, in other words. On top of that, he wears the yellow patched robe of a monk, of a beggar, which is the robe of discipline and training. Training ourselves in the good. Making sense of that contradiction, he wears the red robe of courage and love. And we need all three robes if we are to combat the demons, if we're to build a monastery of value and meaning in our life in the unpropitious conditions of our own mind and modern life. But also, importantly, Padmasambhava does all of that in the context of death, in the context of awareness of death. He makes that awareness into an adornment. He turns death into jewelry, almost sort of chunky jewelry. It's a very outrageous thing to say. But anyway, he turns death into an adornment. He carries a trident, and on that trident are three severed heads, a freshly severed head, a rotting head, and a skull. He carries the nectar of immortality in a skull cup in his hand. So he turns death into jewelry, into an adornment. So that's saying that he's not afraid of death, but he knows death. So what that's saying is, any truly human life is predicated on awareness of death. As soon as you're aware of death, the question becomes what to do with my life. An ideal, a human ideal, which is different from an idea. I think what you get in Santarachita is an idea of value and meaning. What you get in Padmasambhava is an ideal of value and meaning. An ideal comes from a real sense that I am going to die, that all things will end. So I need to dedicate myself to the truth. I need to dedicate myself to the highest good, because that's the only thing worth doing if your life comes to an end. And your life will come to an end, and you've no idea when, and you have no idea how. So the only thing sensible to do about that, sensible is a weak word, but you know what I mean, is to dedicate your life to the good. And that means wearing these three robes. So the King of Tibet, Santarachita says, okay, I can't build this meaning and value. I'm a good man, but it's a bit of an idea, really. I want to be a good person. I want to do the best, but it's not really deeply grounded in myself. It's still a bit of an idea. It's interesting, he's a scholar, for instance. So he talks to the King of Tibet, he admits defeat, the King of Tibet sends for Padmasambhava. Now the King of Tibet, parabolically, represents our intentions. He's the king. He represents the part of ourself that is, as it were, ruling ourselves, that's setting our intentions, that's trying to guide ourselves. After all, the king, metaphorically, guides the state, holds the state together. And the state is often an image for the human psyche. All the different parts of the human psyche being ruled by a judicious king. And sometimes, of course, those parts of the psyche are being ruled by a malevolent king or a malevolent queen. But this is a psyche being ruled by the judicious king. So he then sends his courtiers to find Padmasambhava. He knows that's who he needs. He needs this image, this figure that embodies an awareness of death. And out of that awareness wears these three cloaks, these three robes of meaning and mystery, discipline and training, love and courage. That's what Tibet needs, and that's what you need. That's what your mind needs. That's what you need to practice, and that's what I need to practice. So off the courtiers go to try and find him, and they find him sitting on a red lotus in the middle of a lake, in the middle of this huge lake. I always imagine him surrounded by birds and swans and that whole life, bird life of the lake. I mean, that's just me playing with the image. But I love this image of a figure appearing on this lake, the Lake Dharmakosha, this fathomless lake. And remember, the lake and water, great depth of water, is always a symbol for the unconscious. It's always a symbol for what lies beneath light, the unconscious, all those great animals, those fish moving around in the unconscious, whales almost moving around in the unconscious, surrounded by water birds. Yeah? But the exciting thing is he's an 8-year-old boy. He's an 8-year-old boy. He appears as an 8-year-old boy. And he's described as having beads of perspiration on his brow. Lovely, these beads of perspiration glittering on his brow. Now, if you've ever had an 8-year-old boy in your life, and I have, they're full of energy. If you try and hug them or you try and talk to them, they squirm. All they want to do is run around and fight and play games, and you can see them. They're just like, I mean, when you try and get them to do their homework, it's almost agonizing to try to get an 8-year-old to sit down and do sums. I'm remembering myself partly as an 8-year-old being told to do sums. You want to run around the playground, you want to fight, you want to climb trees, you want to get dirty. Yeah? So what the 8-year-old boy represents, and again, don't bother too much about gender. What the 8-year-old boy represents is energy, is animal energy, energy unlocked, energy moving, energy creating energy. It's a sort of, I don't know, madness of human energy. So often in religion or even in philosophy or thought, energy is dampened down. It's squeezed in. We're trying to be nice, earnest, goodly, spiritual people. Buddhism isn't for spiritual people, I don't think. It's not for that neurotic, self-hating, guilty, timid, do-gooding person. It's for people who want to unleash their energy. In that sense, it's an erotic matter. It's about lighting up. It's about finding your energy. So what the parable is telling you is if you want to grow up, if you want to move from being Santarachita to being Padmasambhava, and I think, and this is my own thought, is that Padmasambhava is Santarachita matured. I think it's the same figure. I think it's the same person that's learned about life. If you want to mature from Santarachita to Padmasambhava, you've got to start by getting in touch with your energy, with your primal, physical, emotional, erotic energy. You want that to be really alive. That's the first thing that you'll need to do.